So Annalise Keating is the most powerful lawyer in the state, hell, maybe even the country, and her password is 123456. That's either really stupid or incredibly genius. Alright everyone, we made it! This video is going to be about How to Get Away with Murder Season 6, mid-season, fall finale, titled, Are You the Mole? It'll be a quick review mixed in with some future predictions and laced with spoilers, and oh boy, did this episode send me into about 7 anxiety attacks, but I'm here! And so are you. So thank you for watching. I do take my top 3 favorite or most interesting theories left in the comment section of my last video and then feature them at the end of this one here. So, be sure to stick around for that. I also release new videos every Sunday, so hit subscribe and that thumbs up to see more videos like this one. One last thing. Going forward, I'm not gonna have any episodes to review for a while. So if you have any topics you want me to cover or discuss, comment them down below. I already have some ideas of where I want to go, but I would love your input too. So last week I went to a special How to Get Away with Murder event, and then they surprised us with an early screening of the mid-season finale. Immediately after, the cast came out and then they did a Q&A. So there's 2 things I want to cover here real quick. Number 1, Viola Davis is the most lovely woman I've ever met. And 2, the cast is just incredible and very inspiring to listen to. But I'll be honest, they didn't really talk about exclusive show stuff. It was primarily about the actors, how the show got created, how they got their roles, etc, etc, etc. So I really don't have much to talk about with that. With that said, this video is going to be all season 6 mid-season finale, which is great because this episode was a roller coaster and I have no idea where to start. So how about we start with the one question that's been looming over us all season. Where the f*** is Laurel? So we don't get an actual clean answer, but we do find out that she's alive and she's not the informant. Anyway, everyone thinks that Laurel could possibly be the mole, and she's like, oh hell no, let me call these people. So she video chats Michaela, and they're all high on shrooms because Oliver. But the key here is that Laurel isn't the informant, and she's not in witness protection. Also, Tegan was involved in helping Laurel disappear, and I knew it, and I will revel in the spotlight of getting this right because it is about the only thing I got right about this episode, but that is beside the point. Looks like Tegan's got some explaining to do, and so does Laurel, because still, where the hell is she? Now, that's going to be a theory that I discuss in a future video, but speaking of Tegan, I got questions. First off, Tegan finalizes the wrongful death suit with Nate. Nate's been gone for a week since the whole Miller reveal, and one of the first things Tegan asks Nate is if the FBI can't find Xavier because he's put him in the ground somewhere in the woods. Now that just seemed really odd to me. Like, I get that she thinks Nate could possibly be pissed and want to take things into his own hands, but she's never really experienced a violent side to Nate, so why would that be her go-to thing to say? Aside from that, now that we have confirmation that Tegan helped Laurel, well, kind of. I was actually thinking about this and Laurel could have just called out a name just to call out a name, but I do think it is true that she did help Laurel disappear. Anyway, now that we have confirmation that Tegan helped Laurel disappear, it's possible that she could know about Miller. Hell, she could know about the whole Sam and St. Clair situation. I mean, she was already suspicious about the Simon thing, and I'm just realizing they all start with S's. It's really weird. So what all exactly does she know, and why did she help Laurel? I mean, they could be planning to take down Xavier and Jorge for good, or I don't know. Now, I still don't think that they're working against the Keating crew, because if that were the case, Tegan wouldn't have helped Nate to the extent that she did, and then Laurel wouldn't really have any reason to call Michaela. A couple last things about Tegan that may tie into major theories later on. First, who is her client when she arrives at the scene of the crime in the flash forwards? Second, where was she when Michaela called her after Laurel's video chat? Apparently, she was too busy to answer her phone, and we know that she wasn't with Annalise at the time. By the way, that scene at the Dean's graduation party was great, and I'm officially shipping a Tegan and Annalise relationship. Like, we could call them Tegan Annalise or something. Anyway, let's move on to the students and then Oliver. So Oliver gets the bright idea to get everyone high on shrooms, and then it coincides with the worst possible moment ever. They found out Laurel is okay and blah, blah, blah. The biggest thing here is that it's graduation night, and then Asher reveals himself to be the informant. So it wasn't anger management, but it still did involve his family. Apparently, Chloe and Mommy Millstone needed Asher snooping as leverage to keep Mommy Millstone out of jail for Daddy Millstone's shady dealings. Asher is also told that Annalise was the one that leaked the information that led to his father committing suicide. Now, the idea of Asher being the informant has been tossed around for quite some time, and it was really interesting to see how it all played out. Okay, during Asher's confession of being the informant, Oliver decides to whack him over the head with a fireplace poker, but it doesn't kill him, and this ties into a thought I have a little bit later. Anyway, it does cause some serious damage though. It did seem a little odd for Oliver to do it so spontaneously, but it does tie into him feeling like he never really steps up. So for once, he did. Great timing, Ollie. But before we continue there, let's talk about Gabriel for a little bit. So he's still on that Peyton trip. And look, I know I went off a little bit on Gabriel in the last episode, and I apologize. I'm happy he's moving on. Moving on to the damn FBI, we can only assume he's coming back from the FBI, considering Frank, who's patiently waiting in his apartment to ambush him, calls him out on it, and to top it off, Gabriel is recording their conversation for some reason. Seems easy, right? Not so much. I think there's a little bit more to it than that. That would be entirely too easy to put together for How to Get Away with Murder plotline. Maybe he was, and he was becoming informant. The killer sequel. Good one, Todd. See, what I think though is he was somewhere else entirely different, and he was recording the conversation for his own personal shadiness. So Frank also threatens and then attacks Gabriel, but doesn't follow through with it for some reason. So was Frank just trying to scare him, or did they possibly come to some sort of deal? There's a lot of unresolved scenes in this episode, and I think it was done exceptionally well to keep us on the hook for when the show does return. All right, back to Asher and the students. I had to talk about Frank just a little bit to give him some context because I'm gonna refer to him here. I will say, I was really suspicious about Asher when he asked about Sam a couple episodes back. Same thing earlier in this episode. I was actually 100% sure that Asher was the informant when he proposed to Michaela. It was just so random, and then he refers to Connor and Oliver's legal privileges, and I was basically able to put it together instantly. I do think Asher had the best intentions in mind and was only out to take down Annalise and to free his peers. So the reveal and what happens is actually much more heartbreaking because of that. So while Michaela, Connor, and Oliver are coping with the Asher news, Asher manages to slip out, and then we see the flash forward of him going to Bonnie's finally catch up. We can only assume that Asher confesses to Bonnie that he's the informant, and then before Frank can return to the Keating pad, Bonnie calls him over, which I'm assuming to deal with the whole Asher situation. But here's another unresolved scene. We don't actually know what they talked about. And then the next time we see Asher, he's taking his last breaths right before he dies. And I guess we'll get to that a little bit later too. Right now, let's talk about Annalise and then sprinkle some Nate in there. First off, Annalise's goodbye speech in the classroom was an obvious I'm leaving the country and changing my name to Justine speech. I think her original plan was to go see her mother one last time and then to leave the country immediately afterwards. But due to the Operation Bonfire being reopened, she needed to just leave. As she's in the process of initiating the I am Justine phone, Nate comes over and they have a heated argument where Nate is called an animal, Nate nearly beats Annalise, then a fireplace poker is thrown across the room, which I'll talk about a little bit later, but Nate does leave unscathed. I think it's official, and we can say that Nate will never, ever be on Annalise's side again. And their relationship is completely severed. Before all this happens, Nate gives Annalise the files that he stole from Denver's office, and before Annalise burns them, she reviews them. And I think it's interesting that they're only files for Annalise, Frank, Michaela, Wes, and Laurel. And I think that's going to be referred to later on in the show. I think it's interesting that Denver didn't have any files for Connor, Bonnie, or Asher, especially considering that Connor was there for Sam's murder and Asher was basically the cause for Sinclair's. So Annalise spends some time with herself, a gun in hand, and then a bunch of voices in her head reminding her of all the bad things that she's done. This scene was very strange to me. Was she planning on killing herself? Was this her hashtag killing Annalise? Because the next time we see her, she's burning the Denver files and then initiating the whole I am Justine phone. This was possibly her just breaking down and then reevaluating her life since Sam's murder. And then the evil queen's tower basically crumbling down. Okay, so after this, we get Annalise catching up to the flash forward. She's making the call, she's grabbing her shit, and then she's getting in the car. During the ride though, she has a change of heart and then tells the driver to stop and then turn around. And then the next time we see her, she's getting on a tiny ass plane. You guessed it, another unresolved scene, which I will get to later. Okay, so I do think Annalise is going to actually leave, and she may be gone for quite some time when the show picks back up. But I do think she will be back. Whether it's because she sees the news and Michaela's on trial for Asher's murder, or maybe she just feels bad in general, or her mom takes a turn for the worst and she can't help but to come back one last time. Regardless, what I'm getting at is that she will be back. All right, I think that's all the important stuff that we need to cover in this episode, except maybe the fact that Wes is still alive. Okay, so I'm not gonna spend much time on this because we literally have nothing to go on, but this episode ends with the flash forward we got from the first episode of the season. This time though, we actually get to see who's walking through the crowd at the funeral, and it's Wes Gibbons. And I know. Many of you have been saying this since my first Laurel is playing this video, and I was just like, nah, no way, he did. And for that, I'm apologizing. You were right, and I know for me, my jaw dropped when I saw it. Now this opens up a whole new world of questions, but I'm gonna save that for another video. How to Get Away with Murder doesn't come back till April 2020, and I need content. Right now, we're strictly gonna talk about this episode, and how I think about those unresolved scenes play a huge role. First, a lot involved Gabriel, and I don't think that's a coincidence. Then Frank choking Gabriel out and then letting him live for some reason, and then there's another scene I hadn't even mentioned yet. We get a POV shot of someone walking up the stairs and then knocking on Gabriel's door, and he answers. Prior to that, Gabriel's sitting in his apartment listening to the confession and attack from Frank. What could that be used for, and why was he even listening to it at that time? If I was him, I would have taken it directly to the FBI, or it's probably because he and Frank made a deal. Or what if Frank threatened Vivian or something? Enough about that though. Someone comes up to Gabriel's door, and judging by his reaction, it's possibly someone that he knows. Could it be Frank again? The FBI agent? Tegan? Nate? Annalise? We do have that lost moment of her turning around and then getting on the plane. Could it be Asher? I noticed that Gabriel glances down for a split second. He could be looking at the blood on Asher's shirt. Also, the POV seemed disoriented. It could be Asher's disoriented vision. Speaking of Asher, we don't know what he did between the Keating pad and then going to Bonnie's place. And then we also don't know what happened or what he did between Bonnie's place and then going back to his apartment. We also don't know what happened when Frank got to Bonnie's. But wait, there's more. Haven't even talked about Asher's final death scene yet. We finally catch up to the flash forward we've been seeing all season. We see the fireplace poker murder. At first, I thought Asher simply died from Oliver's whack to the head, which would make the whole Oliver, I'm the murderer scene make sense. He thinks he caused Asher's death, but Asher actually died because he was beaten again with a fireplace poker. If you look closely at Asher's shirt, there's a lot more blood there than there was before, so hashtag who killed Asher? One thing that keeps bugging me is the significance of flashing to that scene in Annalise's apartment and showing that fireplace poker sitting on the ground. Now, this should be the one that has Michaela's fingerprints on it, but it should have the fingerprints of Annalise, Connor, Asher, Oliver, and Michaela if we refer back to episode 1. So why does someone want to specifically frame Michaela? Okay, let's refer back to the Tegan flash forward. So who exactly is a client that's up there? Gabriel? When did she have time to take him on as a client? Perhaps that unresolved scene between the FBI agent showing up and then going back home to being ambushed by Frank. Is it Nate? I mean, she was currently representing him, but then what was he doing there? There are so many questions that deserve theories and predictions, and I have just like a ton already spinning around in my head. And I also need content for the next 5 months, so guess what we'll be doing until April? Last thought, that song that they chose for the final scene was epic, and I've been listening to it nonstop since the episode officially aired. So that wraps up my season 6 mid-season review. We have a lot to think about over the next 5 months, so comment your theories below. I'll be doing a video per character and theory, and then also just videos of where I think the show may be going over the next 6 final episodes, and obviously I'll need your help for that. So let me know what you think, from that seems logical to that's incredibly insane. Regardless, I want to know your thoughts so I can feature them in my videos. So like, what's gonna happen with AK? How is Wes still alive? We still don't know where Laurel is. What's gonna happen with Michaela, Connor, and Oliver? Who is Tegan's client? What's Gabriel's deal? And then who actually killed Asher? All right, so I know this is a bit redundant now, but I'm still gonna do it because I'm a man of my word. So these are my top 3 favorite or most interesting theories left in the comment section of my last video, whether they're valid now or not. All right, this one is gonna be from Marilyn Miller. I'm going digital now instead of wasting paper every time I do this. Anyway, this one says that Oliver is still a suspect. He's still kind of jaded from Simon being deported, and he's also now starting to realize how shady these people he's been married to and hanging out with actually are. And then also, Simon is still a suspect. I still like the idea of Simon coming back somehow. He was kind of brushed off to the side, and I would like to see him return somehow at the end of the series. This is another one I found interesting by Sexy Nisi. It involves Solomon, and he's actually an informant because he knows that Annalise is trying to leave the country, and he's also trying to protect his daughter. And then on top of that, it's possible he could be hired as Michaela's lawyer when she's like, I want to speak to my lawyer. All right, and this final one is by Derek, I'm gonna mess this up, Love You His. So, did anyone see Asher holding a fireplace poker throughout their apartment in episode 7? I'm starting to think that's the one that's using the photos instead of the one at Annalise's house. You have no idea how right you were. But, like I said, the weird thing is, we kept seeing flashes of the fireplace poker at Annalise's place, which makes me think it is still kind of involved somehow. So I know some of these were kind of redundant, but I do think it's still possible that there is another informant or some of these may come true. Don't forget to comment down below. Having content for my videos is a lot easier with your help. Also, if there's a specific topic or something in particular you want me to talk about, comment that too. If I have enough people asking, I'll make a video for it. As always, thank you so much for watching and your continued support. It truly does mean a ton. If you have some time and are already going through some how to get away with murder withdrawals, watch another one of my videos here. Then don't forget to hit that thumbs up. It really helps me out. Then subscribe with a side notification bell. Until next time, shine on, you crazy diamonds.